So since the beginning of the year, I've migrated the course to LearnArena, which is a project-based robotics learning platform. So it's a whole learning environment in itself where you not just build your skills in different domains and aspects of robotics, but you actually also build projects and you learn a lot of theoretical concepts as you build the project. So the at the core of LearnArena is a project-based learning by doing methodology for learning robotics, and you build projects that are actually what companies value and care about, and what the and that are very similar to the industrial projects at companies. And a huge aspect of this is also personalization and accountability and mentorship and community, which I'll be talking about. So when you join the course, essentially you'd start with the roadmap, which is a 6 month roadmap. So ideally, you're expected to complete the program within 6 months, but you do get lifetime access of the course and all the modules of the course because sometimes there's things that come up. Maybe there's a couple of months break that you need to take due to a personal reason. So I don't want you to be hindered just because of any personal limitation. So you would get lifetime access, but the course is designed to be completed within 6 months, which means that within a span of 6 months, that is, if you enroll now in the August cohort, by the end of January, you would be getting a job in robotics. And essentially, you'd have a strong portfolio of robotics projects built upon a strong set of fundamentals in mathematics, ROS2, Gazebo, OpenCV, TensorFlow, etc. And you would be really confident in terms of applying for jobs, not just in Europe, anywhere in the world, whether you want to go to US, Germany, Italy, wherever you want to apply. So you essentially do not need any background in robotics to start this program. You start from zero skills in robotics to getting a job at your dream robotics company. So when you start, you first start with the mindset cultivation module, which essentially gives you a set of guidelines or mindsets to adopt in terms of essentially letting go of your limiting beliefs. Someone who is very new to robotics or who was transitioning from a different engineering or non-engineering domain to robotics, they have a lot of limiting beliefs. Hey, robotics is very hard. Hey, mathematics is not for me. I've never done programming. I'm using AI tools. I do not feel confident enough when I'm building these projects. So things of that nature. So you start with cultivating a strong mindset. You let go of the limiting beliefs. You plant in new beliefs. You define your goals very, very clearly so that you know in which direction you are heading towards. You define your accountability partners. You join the project teams. And depending on the plan that you choose, you would have the level of mentorship, and I'll talk about that later as well. So you start with the cultivating the mindset, which you do in a week, and then you go straight towards understanding the core of software development. So you start with setting up your system. We use Ubuntu in robotics. All the companies use Ubuntu, so you would be just learning the fundamentals of Linux in a very practical way, the kind of tools and commands that are used in the industry. You'd be learning those practices, and you'd be learning things such as Git and Docker. And these would be just a couple of weeks long. So the idea is that we want to get you from uh, just learning the concepts to getting started with the projects as soon as possible, which is why we want to spend as minimal time as possible on these conceptual foundational areas. And the reason why we are able to do it is because these sections are also very personalized, and I'll be talking about that as well as I dig into one or more of these modules. So the idea is that there are a lot of concepts, that these modules are very comprehensive, but you do not need to know everything, because in companies you only need to master 20% of the core foundational concepts in ROS2, Python, C++, Linux, Git, etc., that are used over and over again in robotics projects. So if you master that, that is essentially all you need to become job ready. And on top of that, it's the projects that count. And this is why we want to focus on mastering the core foundational concepts in robotics. So once you have a strong software development foundation, you start with programming and you spend almost a month on programming, a week or so on Python, and then a couple of weeks on C++ because both Python and C++ are very important for robotics. And then you also spend a week on learning the fundamentals of data structures and algorithms. And once you do that, there's a comprehensive 2 week module on mathematics for robotics where you learn linear algebra, calculus, numerical methods, statistics, probability, and geometry. And the way that you learn it is fundamentally different from any mathematics course that you would see online from universities and so on. In a typical university course or in an online MOOC on Coursera or Udemy, essentially, you would be given a lecture where you'd understand a lot of these concepts, and then you will be solving these toy problems, right? But what we have is essentially you'd be learning the practical implications of each of these concepts that you learn in a lot of detail. You'd be applying every single one of these concepts, and you'd be seeing real world practical applications of each of these concepts in robotics and how these are expected to be used in robotics. So a lot of people, they um, essentially enroll in an engineering program, and they have to clear mathematics, right? That is generally something to be expected. And then they end up wondering, hey, I never really use these. When once they start working, they say, I never really used it. But the fact is that in robotics, everything is built upon mathematics. And the only reason why people wonder, hey, why am I not using it, is because the practical implications are not made clear from the get-go. And this is what my attempt has been by means of designing this course, and in particular the mathematics section. And after that, you learn the foundations of robotics. First of all, the generic foundations in robotics, which everyone who wants to work in robotics should know, such as ROS2 and a simulator such as Gazebo. And then there are niche specific modules and concepts and libraries and frameworks that you need to know. So, for example, for computer vision, which is one niche, so there's four niches, by the way, in robotics: perception, motion planning, machine learning, and controls. And depending on which niche or career direction you choose, you would need to know different set of tools and frameworks, right? So, for computer vision or perception, it's basically OpenCV and a machine learning library such as TensorFlow or PyTorch. If you choose controls, you need to know ROS2 control. If you choose motion planning, you have to know Move It to and some other libraries in motion planning domain. So you learn those libraries, and then you start building projects, and you start building four mini projects in four domains of robotics. And these mini projects are 1 week long each. So these are mini projects, as the name says. You do not need to spend a lot of time building these projects, because the goal of building these projects in this month is essentially to give you enough reference experience and exposure so that you can ask yourself the tough questions that would help you identify your niche. So eventually, companies do not expect you to be a master of controls, motion planning, perception, learning, imitation learning, deep reinforcement learning, etc. You need to define your career direction and path. And once you give enough reference experience, you can ask yourself, hey, what are the kind of projects that I actually loved working on? What is my career path? What are my strengths and things of that nature? And you identify and lock in your niche. And once you lock in your niche, let's say it's perception, then you can start your mastery journey. Essentially, your main journey would start after here, but you need the foundation to really get to that stage. So, what the mastery process looks like is that you start doing a slightly bigger project, so an intermediate level project of 2 weeks long, and then you finish that project, and then you take up another slightly bigger project of 3 to 4 weeks long, and then a major project of 1 to 1.5 months long, depending on how much time you have available. By the end of this module, essentially, you would have um, four mini projects on your portfolio and three major projects. And these are really powerful industrial projects that you would choose from and you'd build. And these projects look very good on your resume. And these are the kind of projects that company really pay you a lot of money for. And once you are done with that, then we start to the job application phase, which in and of itself is something that does require preparation. and you would be spending a week on creating your portfolio, tracking the jobs. There's a specific process of creating your CV, creating your portfolio. Um, and preparing for mock interviews. There's coding challenges, there's lead code style interviews that you get to practice. There's also behavioral interviews that you need to practice, and so on. So now I'll walk you through each of the sections so that you have a better understanding of what is there in the program. So essentially, this is the roadmap, this is the journey that you would be undertaking. And the platform is structured into three different categories. So the first category is the learn section. So every single module that you see, the job applications module, software development foundation, programming, mathematics, etc., these fall under the learn category. And the learn category is essentially a personalized way of learning where you track every single thing that you are learning. You understand realistically what your strengths are, what you do not know, what are the things that you need to focus more on, and what are the things that you need to not spend so much time on because you already know that. And this is where the personalization aspect of the program comes into picture. So I'll show you the one of the modules, let's say mathematics for robotics. So you see there's foundation, linear algebra, calculus and numerical analysis, statistics and probability and geometry. So you go to linear algebra, and we have all of these sections. And within all of these, we have these subcategories, and there are a lot of concepts. So you can see like there's at least 170, 180 concepts that you have been given, but as I mentioned, you do not need to know all of these things. I'll show the powerful personalization process that has been integrated on the platform. So let's say you want to learn this particular concept, right? So each of these concepts is structured in a particular format where you see illustrations of the concepts. You see how the concept is explained visually. There's component form and notation explained clearly, and then there's plenty of examples for you to really see how these are actually applied. But not only that, you also apply every single concept in Python and C++. So you're given an activity that helps you actually understand how these would be implemented using Python and C++, which libraries you would do, and how specifically you would apply. And at the same time, you also see how concretely these are used in different robotics applications and projects. So this is something that is provided to you. And at the same time, we have the same format for essentially every single concept that we have. It follows a very systematic format. You can zoom in and just focus fully on the concept. And once you're done with that, essentially you track your progress on every single concept. And the way that you do it is that you mark a concept as complete. And so what you see here is the scalar multiplication. You see all of the other concepts are marked as red, which means that you haven't visited them. Once you mark it as complete, you would be seeing the concept marked as green, which means that you already know it. Now you might say, hey, I'm not totally sure, I don't feel totally confident in this concept. Maybe I need to review it. So you can mark it as for review, and this would be marked as yellow. And all of these concepts are being tracked. Your progress is being tracked. So the concepts that you are completed and that you're confident of, the concepts that are in progress, and the concepts that are remaining. So everything would be tracked. And likewise, for every single one of these modules, there is activities. These are quizzes essentially that test your understanding, that allow you to build your confidence in every single one of these concepts. And these are also tracked. You just finish these and you mark these as completed, and these are being tracked. And likewise for calculus and numerical analysis, you can see again there's a lot of concepts out there, statistics and probability and geometry. Now, I mentioned that you do not need to know all of these things, because that would probably, if you were to do all of these things, you probably would need to spend a month or so. And again, depending on how much flexibility you have and how much time you have available. But the goal is to get you started with building projects as soon as possible. So you do not start with these modules, you start with taking a self-assessment test, and these essentially have a lot of quizzes in all of the different sub-modules within the mathematics module. And what it does is it's basically allows you to analyze for yourself where you are, but also gives you an overview and analysis of what are the concepts that you already know, what are the concepts that you need to review, and what are the concepts that you need to spend extra time on, right? So you answer this question correctly, and it marks the concept indefinite integral already as completed. So that means that you do not need to spend time on that. So once you give the self-assessment test, what would happen is that you would see that a lot of concepts would be automatically marked as green, which means that you do not need to revisit them. You already know these concepts. So you skip those concepts and then you focus only on the concepts that you do not really know, which you would get from your self-assessment. So this is the core idea, and this is not just for the mathematics section. The same ideology or methodology is available for programming. You start with the self-assessment test, you do the self-assessment, you assess how confident you are, what are your skill sets, what are the concepts that you need to spend more time on, what are the concepts that you do not need to spend more time on, and so on. And likewise for robotics. So in robotics, basically, we have a few generic modules like ROS2, a gazebo, and also modules on building projects. And then there are these niche specific projects. So perception would have OpenCV and Open 3D fundamentals. Then machine learning has TensorFlow, and then controls has ROS2 control, and motion planning has Move It 2 fundamentals. And all of these follow the same personalization methodology. The tracking is applicable for each of these modules and so on. And likewise for the job application section, it's the same concept. We follow the same system. There's a representative example, there's illustrations, and also practice activity, how these concepts apply to robotics and real world applications and so on. And in a lot of sections, you'd see that there's a video mode where I explain the particular concept. Plus, there's also the um, standard textual explanation in the format that I mentioned to you. So you can feel free to choose. Not every concept has a video. Only the concepts and the ideas that require video explanations have videos. For most of the cases in the mathematics section, for instance, you have the textual format because it's more easy. There's a lot of programming and illustrations, and that is easier to follow if you just open up the toggle items and go through that. So this is about the learn section, and now I'll come to the build section, and I'll also show you what the projects look like. So the build section essentially has projects of different difficulty levels in each of the different categories of robotics. So perception has these projects, motion planning has these projects, machine learning has a lot of projects, controls and manipulation, and then there's also community projects, which are projects that are undertaken by the course members, and you can essentially take up your own projects as well. And if you choose the plan which has mentorship, the same roadmap applies to you and the same support applies to you. And I'll talk more about the support and community accountability and mentorship aspects in the grow section. So uh, so I mentioned that you do 4 mini projects in 4 domains of robotics, right? So what does it look like? This is the module called Domain Exploration Sprint. And essentially what you do is you select a mini project in each of the categories of robotics. So you have a few options to choose from. You can choose community projects, or you can choose the projects for which you have solutions. Likewise, you do it for the other category. And if you say, okay, I want to build my own projects, you have the flexibility, and this is in all the plans actually. So you define your own project, you create it, and you'd have a rough template and a structure on how to actually build a project yourself. Or you say, okay, I want to build my own projects, but I do not know which projects to build. So apart from the projects for which you have the solutions available, which you have probably seen on the plans page. If not, I'll also show you that soon. But apart from that, you also have a lot of projects to choose from. So these are the projects for which you do not have solutions, but you have external resources available to you, and you have a full um, a full project pipeline and guide available to you. So let's say I to choose a project here, and I go to that project. page. So you have the project definition that is automatically created for you, which programming languages to use, which concepts to learn, which difficulty level, inputs and outputs, etc. Brainstorming, project planning, literature review, conceptualization. There's external resources that are available to you, implementation, etc. So this is the case if you want to do your own project. Now, once you do these projects, of course, like you define your niche. So this is the last question in this case, where you lock in your niche, and then you do major projects, and in this case, again, you choose the projects that you want to do, right? So now I want to show you the learning by building um, format that we have. Essentially, the projects for which you have the solutions available are structured in a specific format that allow you to learn the concepts as you're building the project. So each project is broken down into a pipeline and individual modules and sections of the pipeline. So you start with setting up your workspace. Load the data set. You detect contour. You calculate the angles. You get the bottom center angle classification. Now this is of course very specific to this particular project that we are looking at. What you'll see is that we have the activities section and we have the concept section. So I'll go to, let's say, one of the activities section, let's say find contours in binary image, right? So I come here, you'll see that there's sub activities available to you. So the idea is that you just follow these instructions in a step-by-step manner, and you build the project yourself because these instructions would essentially tell you what you need to do. You do it yourself, and then you reveal the solution and you compare it with your solution. And this is how you actually build confidence. So this is very different from really working with AI. Of course, there are ways that you can also use AI to get that feedback, but the idea is that you build it yourself, you write the code yourself with your bare hands, and then you get feedback from the actual solution. And this is what you get here. You can follow a similar practice when you use AI tools, which is what I talk about as well in the community. Um, but you might say, hey, okay, I do not know what contours are or what a binary image is. So what you do is that you go ahead and there's a concept library connected with it, and this is essentially the same library that we saw in the learn section, and this is essentially just linked here. So you'd see that the concepts that are needed to solve these activities are linked here. So you say, okay, open CV find contours function. This is you remember the same format that we saw in the learn section, and you mark this as complete. Now you know this particular concept. Now you come back to the activity, and then you now are better equipped to solve this particular problem. Likewise, you go back and forth. You come here, you solve this particular you learn this particular concept. You come back here, you follow all these steps. You build the project, and you mark it as complete. So you keep on doing this over and over again, and it is something that you can just blindly follow in a step-by-step manner, but the way it is different from following a tutorial is because is that it actually pushes you to do it yourself first, and then only then you look at the solution. So you're learning by doing, you're learning the concepts as you're doing it. You do not need to go to YouTube or go to a research paper to see, hey, what are the concepts that you are available out there. You would be doing um, background research anyway. You'd be doing literature review, which is part of any project. So you would be doing that. But once you do that, you would have a clear project pipeline, and you would just start implementing these projects. So that is the whole idea of learning by building. Now I'll come to the last but not the least uh, section of the platform, which is the grow section. This is the whole community hub that we have associated with it. So I make all the announcements here, which are related to the course, which are related to monthly meetups and weekly progress reviews. And essentially, we have a comprehensive weekly progress review system. There's three core teams available depending on the time zone. So there's a team for Europe. If you're in Europe, this particular time zone would be suitable to you. If you're in Asia, this other team time zones would be available to you. And if you're in America, in US, on South America, the third team, Team Atlas, would be applicable to you. And way it works is that you do a weekly progress review. So every single week on Sunday, we do a weekly progress review, and I'm very strict on that. I make announcements, I push people individually to do it, because this is essentially where you make progress, and this is essentially where you build skills, and this is essentially where you become job ready. So you remember that we start with defining our goals in the mindset cultivation section, right? So what happens as you start your journey is that you're initially very enthusiastic and you make a lot of progress, but then things show up, things come up, and you get distracted, or you spend too much time on the module that you should not have spent time on. You should have already, let's say, started building projects, or you should have already started applying for jobs, but you just do not feel confident enough. So this is where I come in, and you do your weekly progress review with your team members. You join your team's call. So there's a Google Meet sort of a tool that is embedded in it. You just join it with your team members every single week, and you do your weekly progress review. Or you can also do it yourself if you say that, okay, I have limited time this week. But it is quite essential. You see that students have done it very, very consistently, the weekly progress reviews. And I actually look at these weekly progress reviews and I give you active feedback. So this is how I am heavily invested in the success of every single student, because the success of the course depends on how many people actually build really good projects and how many people actually get jobs. So I'm really heavily invested in that. I want to see every single person get jobs in robotics companies. And then these are the three teams that we mentioned. So you see that each of these teams have a few members, and you can go ahead and join this team, and you can talk with the team members, discuss about any problems that you have. You can ask me questions anytime. By the way, we also have a chat interface, so it's like a social networking site in and of itself. You can talk to any person. People ask me personal questions all the time related to any job opportunities that they get and so on. You can interact with other people. You can tag me in any of the posts. You can create your own projects, as I mentioned, and you can tag me there and ask for my feedback. You can link your own GitHub repositories, which is something that I actually encourage everyone do, and I give you code reviews and feedback on your projects. And then we have one of the most important sections of the program, and this is the monthly meetup. So every single month, every second Sunday of the month, we do a monthly meetup, which is 1 hour long each, and we discuss a project. We take up a project case study, we break it down, we brainstorm, generate a lot of ideas, and this is one of the most exciting phases, because this is where you actually learn to problem solve and come up with solutions, and we create a project pipeline together. So last month, essentially for the July or this month for the July cohort, essentially we discussed a project called recognition of different colored blocks, which was essentially a project that one student wants to undertake, and we discussed that project. We brainstormed it, we generated ideas, and we discussed this project in a lot of detail. So people ask questions after this, so followed by this, there's a discussion. You can also ask any non-project related questions as well. So this is also a generic Q&A session that is followed by that. And likewise, Object 6 pose estimation, all of the industrial projects that you can think of. Most of these projects are the projects that students are interested in, so that you get real-time feedback on the project that you're actually building. And one of the students is actually has a robot kit, jet rover, mobile manipulator, and he wants to do a SLAM project. And this was
Hey
essentially a
guys,
whole theme of one of the meetups, and we discussed this project in a lot of detail. And essentially, this particular project has been completed by the student, and he's on to the second project. And likewise, my Cobot 280, this is another project that is available. So every single month we discuss a project, and this is where you derive a lot of value. The rest of the things, essentially, you could do it independently, but it is essential to also have um, also understand the way how to actually brainstorm and build a project pipeline from scratch, how you can learn problem solving. And then we also have a component of healthy competition. We have a leaderboard that allows you to actually track your score and compare it with others. It's a very healthy way of really trying to push yourself to really make more and more progress, the activities that you did, the concepts that you learned, and so on. So this is one thing, and you also can transparently see which member is enrolled to which of the plans, and you can, based on that, say, okay, I want to uh, talk to this particular person who is doing this in this project, so you can really interact with them. You can choose to join weekly progress reviews for with any of the teams. You can join all of the team progress reviews if you want to. Um, and you can basically switch teams whenever you want. And you can ask me also if you want to have a subgroup and so on. So this is the overall idea, and then you have badges associated with it. So it's the whole personalization and gamification aspect where you receive badges for every single module that you complete. So this way you know that you're actually making progress, and you track your activities just like you do on Git. Um, and you see how active you have been over the weeks, and you'd also see your inactivity for some of the weeks you have not been making that much progress. Cool. So that's all. I can show you the plans that we have available.
Sure.
You have probably had a look at it already. So we have the entry level plan that you mentioned. We have the
Hmm.
self-taught, the niche pro, and the full stack plan. And then there's also custom track that allows you to cherry pick one or more modules. So the most popular plan is niche pro, and I'll start with that. So essentially everything that we saw in the learn section, mindset cultivation, software development, robotics domain foundation, job seeker, every single quiz that you saw, every single tracking system that you saw, the self-assessment tests, the videos, the concepts, every single thing is available in the niche pro plan and the learn category. And then in the build category, what you have is you have four mini projects, and actually there's more than four, but I generally say four because it's like four mini projects that you're supposed to do. You have more to choose from. So you do these four mini projects, but apart from that, you have these major projects. So this is why this is the most popular, because this is the most complete plan where you can just do the mini projects, and you also have access to the major projects in your chosen domain. So as you choose your niche, as your niche is unlocked or activated in the course, you would automatically see the major projects shown in your course. So for perception, it's object orientation estimation, screw pose detection for battery disassembly, 6G pose estimation of foreground objects for bin picking scenario. Likewise, for motion planning, we have projects with Robotic gripper and UR10, which are standard industrial arms, and then also machine learning projects that are related to bin picking. Again, you're probably familiar with this application. There's a lot of uh, demand for bin picking
Picking
in the
place.
industry.
Yeah.
And likewise, there's controls using ROS2 control, gripper control, robotic gripper, simple gripper, robot arm, etc., etc. So all kinematics, inverse kinematics, and so on. So you have access to all the major projects as well, but only in your chosen niche. And you also have access to every single thing that we saw in the mentorship and growth section, the chat interface, the private accountability group, the project teams, weekly progress reviews, monthly meetups, every single thing is available to you. So this is the most popular plan. Now you say, okay, uh, so these would allow you to target one of these niches. So profiles in one of these niches, if you say, I want to be a motion planning engineer, you unlock that niche and you do these projects and you are ready to apply for jobs. And now you say, okay, I want to actually apply for full stack manipulation engineer role. So this requires you to have a certain interdisciplinary level of experience in different domains of robotics. So apart from so you'll still get access to every single thing in the learn section and every single thing in the grow section, but you will also have access to all of the major projects in all categories of robotics. So in the niche pro plan, you had access to one of the niche projects, but in full stack, you have access to every single thing. And you also have two bonus projects using my Cobot 280, this robotic arm um, that you can use to create bin picking or pick and place applications. Now you say, okay, if you're limited in budget, there's also self-taught plan where you also have access to everything um, in the learn section and also have access to everything in the mentorship and grow section. So the grow and learn section are essentially the same in all three categories. The difference is only the access to the projects. And in the self-taught plan, you only have access to the mini projects. You do not get access to any of the niche projects. So this is the core difference. And this would be suitable if you say, okay, I'm a bit limited on budget and I know absolutely that I want to do my own projects and I do not want to follow the learning by building project roadmaps, the notebooks and the structure that has been provided. You want to do your own projects, sure. You have the grow section. I'd still mentor you equally, but you'd have to put in a bit more effort because you're basically creating your own project. And if you say, okay, I want to go for the entry level plan, you do not have access to everything in the learn section. You do not have any access to any of the quizzes. You have access to the tracking system. You have access to the self-assessment tests. So essentially, the concepts that you know and need to know and do not need to spend so much time on, that is being provided to you. But there's quizzes associated with every single one of these. So there are actually a lot of quizzes in the learn section. So, but you do not get access to this in the entry level section. You do not get access to any of the mentoring stuff, and you do not get access to any of the major projects. You still get access to all of the minor projects. So if you say, okay, I want to start with the entry level plan, you can always upgrade to the self-taught plan as well, and you always need to pay the difference. And likewise, if you say I want to go to the niche pro plan and I want to upgrade to full stack plan, some people have done it. It is absolutely fine. I'm open to that as well. You start with self-taught, go to niche pro. But my recommendation,
Guide.
yeah, Job Seeker Guide, you get access to essentially everything as well. So you get a list of all the companies in Europe, Germany, and so on. And these are also like not just lists, but quite detailed as to what are the things that are important to you. You have a whole system of tracking jobs here that is available to you that I have followed over the years. Um, you create a portfolio, you have a CV, there's a guide to applying for jobs, there's examples of cover letters from my application to companies. There's also activities that, hey, you need to, how would you like take a job description and really showcase your projects and skills so that it's reasonable and valuable for the companies. There's mock interviews, live coding challenges, time-driven coding challenges, take-home assignments. So, I
Right.
mean, if you just take this alone and if you have a strong foundation, I mean, I can bet on it that you would get a job. I mean, if you put in the work, this alone would get you a job. I mean, this is my
Mhm.
guarantee. Uh,
Sure, sure.
because
I
like these
trust
are,
you.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, I wouldn't say it otherwise because like I've seen it. And these are like you can imagine like if I give you like real interview questions and if you just
Mhm.
practice those, of course they would ask you a new question, but you're prepared as to what kind of questions